Leo, my radiant friend, if you've landed here today, it's not by accident. There is a message waiting for you, carried on the frequency of 6 sacred numbers, cosmic keys encoded with the power to shift your financial destiny, realign your health, and awaken the leadership energy you've always carried deep inside. These numbers are not random. They are a divine transmission. And they are already circling your energetic field between July 28th and 31st, waiting for your attention. This video exists for one reason: to bring those hidden frequencies to light, to help you recognize them, claim them, and align your actions with what the universe has been trying to whisper into your life for weeks now. The only real question is, will you listen? Welcome to Eternal Mindfulness. This is more than a reading. It's a soul-to-soul encounter, a space where astrology, tarot, numerology, self-healing, and universal law meet to support your deepest evolution. And Leo, you are the reason this message came through. You are the reason this light found a voice. So let me ask you something. Have you been seeing a certain number lately? Has a time on the clock, a receipt total, a license plate, or even a dream brought the same digits into your awareness again and again? If so, don't dismiss it. That's not coincidence. That's resonance. These sacred numbers aren't just signs. They're instructions. Each one holds a specific energetic frequency that connects to your body, your money field, your emotional resilience, and even your current spiritual lesson. And when you identify the one that's been following you, when you claim it, something within you shifts. A doorway opens. Momentum returns. I invite you to do something powerful. Take a breath, close your eyes, and ask yourself, what number keeps showing up for me? When it comes to mind, I want you to type it in the comments below. Not to explain it, just to honor it. Because that small act of naming is how transformation begins. It's how we say yes to what's already moving. Let me take a brief moment to express my deepest gratitude for your presence here. Every like, every comment, every subscribe is not just support, it's a spiritual agreement. You are choosing to engage with content that reflects your growth, your readiness, your remembering. You are not just consuming a message. You are co-creating it. Thank you for being a part of this sacred space. Thank you for bringing your light to eternal mindfulness. And Leo, I'm telling you now, you will want to stay with me all the way through this video. Because what the universe is revealing through these 6 sacred numbers is not just inspirational, it's soul-shifting. There's one number in particular that may catch you off guard. It may reveal something about your future you didn't expect. But it will make sense. And it will find you right on time. So, tell me, what part of your spirit called you to this exact moment? What desire, what question, what frequency pulled you here? Whatever it was, trust it. And let it guide you to the insight that's already waiting in the rest of this message. You're not late. You're not behind. You're exactly on time. And the message that unfolds next, it was written just for you. There's something quietly sacred about the number 1, especially for you, Leo, the sign ruled by the sun, the force of life itself. This is not just a number. It's a symbol of divine initiation, the moment the path forward begins, not from the outside, but from within. The number 1 arrives not as a command, but as a remembrance, a gentle nudge that says, you've always had what it takes. Now is the time to claim it. In the great spiral of cosmic cycles, 1 is the breath before creation, the pulse that stirs before form arises. It carries the energy of the sun, steady, radiant, unapologetically luminous. This number reminds you that you are not orbiting someone else's gravity. You are the center. You are the source. And from that center, life organizes itself. Money flows. Health stabilizes. Vision sharpens. Not because you've finally earned it, but because you've returned to the truth that you never needed to seek outside yourself. Financially, the vibration of 1 speaks of sovereignty. It calls you to lead, not just follow systems or survive within them. It's the vibration of starting something new, a project, a business, a decision that honors your deepest yes. But there's a paradox here. True leadership doesn't begin with dominance. It begins with alignment. When your actions reflect who you really are, you no longer hustle for results. The path begins to clear because you're walking it with intention. And Leo, you were born for this kind of conscious leadership. Health-wise, the number 1 points us gently back to the body as a vessel of life force, not just function. Have you noticed fatigue creeping in? A disconnection from the body that once felt powerful, energized, eager? This is your reminder to return to the source, quite literally. The sun. Let yourself bathe in early morning light. Not as a task, but as a practice of remembering. Your body doesn't ask you to perform. It asks you to listen. To give it light. To feed it joy. Sometimes, the most powerful medicine is presence. A moment of stillness. A breath taken slowly under sunlight. That's not just healing, that's integration. The Magician card reflects this perfectly. He stands before his tools, the wand, the cup, the sword, the pentacle, not as a collector of skills, but as someone who realizes he is the channel through which power flows. He doesn't wait for permission. He doesn't question his right to act. He knows he is the beginning of what will unfold. Likewise, when you embody the energy of 1, you begin to act from the center of your own authority. You make choices that mirror your wholeness, not your fear. You stop shrinking to fit into spaces that can't hold your light. You start creating spaces that feel like home to your soul. There is a quiet wisdom that teaches, what you become aware of, you awaken. When you acknowledge your worth, it begins to shape the reality around you. So here's something simple, but powerful. Write down 5 reasons why you are worthy of leading. Not because you've achieved something massive, but because you exist. Because you care. Because you've endured. Read them each morning like a quiet prayer, not to convince yourself, but to remember. This is not about ego. It's about essence. It's about choosing to show up for your life as the most honest version of yourself. The number 1 doesn't ask you to prove anything. It invites you to begin gently, intentionally, and with a sense of quiet certainty. Not because you have all the answers, but because you've decided to trust the part of you that knows the way forward isn't somewhere else. It's already inside. And from that place, you don't need to force your future. You simply take the next true step. When the energy of the number 8 arrives, especially for you, Leo, it does not come with fireworks or grand announcements. Instead, it comes like the solid hum of structure forming beneath your feet, invisible but undeniable. You may not always see it, but you can feel it, the moment when clarity starts to replace chaos, when the desire for quick wins fades and is replaced by the craving for true alignment. 8 is not the spark of beginning, it is the architecture of legacy. It asks not just what you are building, but how you're sustaining it. This number is deeply tied to Saturn, the planet of discipline, structure, and time. Saturn doesn't rush. Saturn teaches by slowing you down just enough to notice what's actually driving your choices. Right now, you are being invited to step back from the rush and examine your relationship with money and energy. Not from fear, but from curiosity. Are you spending to fill something you haven't named yet? Are you working to prove your worth instead of expressing it? The number 8 doesn't judge. It simply reflects. It says, if you want to expand, start by reinforcing your foundation. There's a lesson here that mirrors one taught through stillness, that real power doesn't arise from force, but from presence. The steadiness to show up again and again. The courage to choose rhythm over rush. The patience to understand that every small decision is a vote for your future. In this way, 8 teaches like the breath, constant, reliable, vital. Just as breath is life's most basic rhythm, 8 is the reminder that consistency shapes reality. Financially, this is a time to return to the basics, simplify, clarify, and recalibrate. Create space between impulse and action. Revisit your budgets not as punishment, but as devotion. Consider starting something small but sacred, a fund dedicated only to your passions, your art, your inner fire. Call it your freedom fund. Not because you're trying to escape your life, but because you're choosing to design one that feels authentic. Even if it's just $5 a week, that gesture says, I honor my creative self. I believe in my future. In health, the number 8 speaks through the body's relationship with tension. Long-term stress, especially unspoken or unattended, often wears down the adrenal system, the energetic center of stamina. When you wake up tired despite sleep, or feel wired but exhausted, it's often not about doing too much, it's about holding too much for too long. Here, the medicine is small but radical, 10 minutes of morning stillness. Not scrolling. Not planning. Just breathing, eyes soft, spine tall, letting your nervous system remember its natural rhythm. The Emperor card resonates deeply here. He doesn't move quickly, but when he does, it matters. He builds not to impress, but to protect. He governs not to control, but to guide. You are being called into that same quiet authority over your time, your energy, your commitments. Not as a way to lock yourself down, but to free yourself from false urgency. Boundaries, after all, are not walls. They are clarity. And clarity allows you to move with strength, not stress. There's a quiet truth in the nature of balance, that true stability is not the absence of movement, but the presence of intelligent structure. You don't have to grip tighter to feel secure. Sometimes, the answer is to simplify. To trust that your discipline today is the invitation for peace tomorrow. To know that when you act in alignment with your values, the results may not be instant, but they will be inevitable. The number 8 doesn't demand loud change. It asks for quiet devotion. And Leo, you already have the heart of a leader. Now is your time to lead yourself with care. There's a certain stillness that comes just before everything changes. Not the kind of stillness born from silence, but the kind that exists in the breath between chapters, the exact moment when one cycle quietly dissolves and another begins to stir. That's the energy of the number 10. For you, Leo, it doesn't just signify movement, it marks a turning of the inner wheel, where destiny is no longer something far away, but something you're beginning to live into. The number 10 is a doorway, a moment of rotation when what was hidden begins to rise, and what no longer serves begins to fall away. This moment may bring surprise, a windfall, an offer, an opportunity that comes swiftly and without warning. But the wisdom of 10 lies not in the outer event, but in how you meet it. Will you respond with centered clarity, or will you reach too quickly, grabbing from old patterns of urgency? There is no punishment here, only practice. 10 asks you to recognize that beginnings and endings often arrive in the same breath, and it is the breath itself, conscious, rooted, intentional, that determines how you move forward. Financially, this energy can feel like the wheel of fortune itself, spinning fast, landing on something unexpected. And while this momentum can be exhilarating, it also asks for balance. When life hands you more, the question becomes, what will you do with it? Not just in action, but in presence. How will you hold abundance without losing your alignment? The answer begins with simplicity. With choosing to remain grounded, to remember that your true wealth was never just in what comes to you, but in how deeply you can stay connected to who you are when it does. Physically, this is a time to listen closely to your body's signals. Rapid movement in your outer life can often strain the inner systems that require rhythm and rest. The digestive system, often called the second brain, is especially sensitive to emotional highs and overstimulation. If you've been moving too fast, reaching for sugar, caffeine, or constant input, 10 gently asks you to slow the spin. Choose nourishment that supports steadiness. Warm, simple meals. Plenty of water. More time spent chewing, less time spent rushing. In doing so, you're not just restoring balance to your gut, you're honoring the temple of intuition that lives in your core. The Wheel of Fortune card, the tarot mirror of this number, speaks to the mystery of cycles. Not everything is meant to stay. Not everything is meant to come quickly. But what is meant for you will never miss you, and what leaves does so only to create space for what is next. This is not a passive message, it is an invitation to participate with life, to trust the turn of events not as chaos, but as choreography. Even when you don't know exactly where the wheel will land, you can meet each spin with grace. That is real mastery, not in controlling the cycle, but in staying centered within it. As a small but potent ritual, waking at 5:55 a.m. number that itself vibrates with change and divine prompting can reset your rhythm. It's not about being productive. It's about presence. About saying, I am available to begin again, not in haste, but with sacred awareness. The number 10 isn't telling you to start over. It's reminding you that every moment holds the potential to become a new path, if you choose it with clarity. In this way, even the smallest decision, what you eat, how you breathe, when you rise, becomes a vote for the life you're building. One step. One turn. One breath at a time. The number 3 carries a rhythm that moves like breath. Inhale, exhale, pause, and in that pause, something deep is always speaking. For you, Leo, this moment invites you to listen not with your ears, but with your entire being. After the momentum of the turning wheel brought by the number 10, 3 arrives as a quieter force, yet no less powerful. It is the pulse of communication, of clarity, of knowing when to speak and when to hold silence. It dances in the space between thought and word, reminding you that your voice was never meant to be loud just to be heard. It was meant to be clear, rooted, and aligned. Linked to Mercury, the planet of expression and intellect, the energy of 3 encourages you to become aware of how you're using your words, both internally and externally. Have you been speaking from habit or from truth? Has your inner dialogue become too noisy, filled with expectations that aren't really yours? Or perhaps you've been absorbing too many voices from the outside, scrolling endlessly, reacting instantly, losing yourself in a sea of constant input. This number doesn't ask for answers. It simply invites awareness. Noticing is healing. Noticing is where the shift begins. The truth is, not all communication requires speaking. Often, the most profound forms of connection come in silence, in the pause before a reaction, in the breath before a decision, in the stillness before you respond. There is wisdom in restraint, in listening inward before responding outward. That's where the energy of the High Priestess comes in. She is not mute, but measured. Her silence is not suppression, it is sacred timing. She knows that clarity doesn't rise from noise, but from stillness. And when it does rise, it does so with power that doesn't need convincing. Financially, this is a time to trust your inner radar, especially around opportunities involving speaking, writing, design, or negotiation. You may receive an offer, or a collaboration may arise that sparks your creativity, but before leaping, pause. Ask yourself, does this resonate with my deeper rhythm, or is it feeding a version of me I've already outgrown? Sometimes, the wisest yes is the one that waits. And sometimes, a gentle no is the most aligned form of self-respect. Your nervous system, too, is calling for a reset. Information overload doesn't just make you tired, it makes you forgetful of your own voice. It's easy to lose touch with your truth when you're constantly absorbing others. So consider this your permission to log off, even for just 24 hours. Give your mind room to breathe, like clearing fog from a window. Let silence find you. In that pause, the messages from within often rise with surprising clarity. Not because they were never there, but because you finally made space to hear them. Color can be a healing frequency in this process. The turquoise tone of aqua, cool, balancing, protective, can be worn, visualized, or simply placed nearby to remind you that communication doesn't have to be reactive. It can be calm, steady, intuitive. Not every thought needs to be voiced, and not every opinion needs a reply. Sometimes, the most powerful thing you can do is return to your breath and allow understanding to arrive on its own terms. As a simple self-alignment practice, write down 3 intuitive messages before you sleep. Just 3 lines. No editing, no judging. Let them be whatever they need to be. Over time, you may notice themes, patterns, or answers revealing themselves gently. Not because you pushed, but because you allowed. The number 3 isn't about doing more. It's about doing less with greater clarity. It teaches that true expression doesn't begin with volume, it begins with presence. And from that presence, Leo, your voice becomes not just something heard, but something felt. There are moments in a life where something begins to stir, not from the outside, but from within. A quiet sense that something is shifting, realigning, preparing you for a different kind of movement. That is the essence of the number 11. Unlike the linear clarity of numbers that came before, 11 is a gateway. It doesn't point toward one specific direction. Instead, it invites you to step through an unseen door, one that only reveals itself when you pause long enough to sense it. This number pulses with a subtle frequency that resists explanation. It doesn't belong to the realm of logic, it belongs to the realm of knowing. For you, Leo, this isn't a time to overthink or overanalyze. It's a time to feel. And more than that, it's a time to trust what you feel before your mind tries to talk you out of it. Because 11 is not about decisions made from fear, pattern, or pressure. It's about decisions made from alignment, from the deep, resonant hum of truth that vibrates in the quietest parts of your body. In terms of financial flow, this is not the season for spreadsheets alone. Yes, structure matters. But this moment calls for another kind of discernment, kind that lives in the body, not in the mind. You may be faced with an opportunity that looks good on paper but feels oddly tight in your chest. Or, perhaps something seems small or risky, yet brings with it a soft, steady sense of peace. Follow the peace. 11 teaches that opportunities aligned with your future do not come wrapped in perfection, they come wrapped in recognition. They feel like something you've known before, not because of past experience, but because they match the vibration of where you're going. Your physical sensitivity may be heightened now. The body becomes a compass when the mind is overloaded. If you've been feeling more reactive to sound, light, or screens, that's not weakness, it's guidance. The nervous system speaks through subtle discomfort, asking you to move more slowly, more consciously. Reducing exposure to screens, especially at night, becomes not just an act of wellness, but one of devotion. Let this be a time when you offer your body space to rest from the static. Let your eyes turn toward natural light, let your breath lead your rhythm. This is not about retreat, it's about refinement. The judgment card mirrors this process. It doesn't demand judgment in the way we've been taught to understand it. It invites revelation. It calls you to rise not in ambition, but in awareness. You are not being asked to prove anything. You are being asked to remember something. Something in you is waking up. Something that had been quieted beneath the noise of the world is starting to speak again. And its voice may be soft, but it is clear. It doesn't rush. It simply invites. Lavender, the color associated with this energy, acts as a bridge between mind and intuition. It's the hue of stillness, of breath, of in-between. You might find it helpful to wear, to surround yourself with, or to visualize when seeking clarity. Think of it not as decoration, but as frequency, a silent ally to help you stay attuned when the external world feels loud. As a practice, return to a dream you wrote down once and forgot about. A vision, a line, a moment that once felt alive to you but got lost in the momentum of daily life. There's often something hidden there, a message, a step, a reflection of who you were when you were most in touch with your path. 11 is the call to reconnect with that part of you. The part that already knows. The part that doesn't need evidence to act. Because sometimes, real change doesn't begin with a plan. It begins with remembering what already felt true. And in remembering, Leo, you rise. Some forms of resistance are so quiet, we don't even realize they're speaking through us. The number 27 enters like a mirror held up gently, without judgment, reflecting not just what's present, but what's been buried. In the context of your financial journey, Leo, this number doesn't point to an external obstacle. It suggests that what may be blocking abundance is not lack but a story. A belief inherited, absorbed, or repeated so often that it has shaped how freely you allow yourself to receive. 27 becomes a sacred key, not because it brings money in hand, but because it invites you to unlock the inner vault where your self-worth and your relationship with prosperity quietly intersect. This number is closely connected to the energy of Venus, not only the planet of love and beauty, but of value, receptivity, and currency. Venus doesn't rush. She doesn't chase. She attracts. She teaches that wealth, when approached with grace, is not about force, it's about allowing. And yet for many, the very idea of allowing is complicated by internalized guilt, shame, or narratives that equate financial ease with moral compromise. Money is dangerous. It's not spiritual to want more. If I succeed, others will resent me. These thoughts don't always appear as loud declarations. More often, they exist as subtle constrictions, an undercurrent of hesitation each time something good tries to come in. The message of 27 is that you cannot truly expand your outer life if you are still contracting internally. Not because you're doing something wrong, but because your energy isn't yet open to receive what it says it wants. This number whispers, not commands, begin with gratitude. Not as a performative ritual, but as a daily retraining of perception. When you write down 9 things you're grateful for each morning over the span of 3 days, you're not just practicing appreciation. You are actively creating space in your awareness for abundance to flow. Gratitude, in this way, becomes more than a virtue. It becomes a currency of clarity. On a physical level, this process of clearing isn't symbolic, it's literal. The liver and lymphatic system are where the body stores and processes what it no longer needs. And when those systems are sluggish, so too is your clarity, your emotional resilience, your capacity to show up fully. A glass of warm lemon water in the morning isn't just a health hack, it's a signal to your entire being that you are choosing flow over stagnation. Add a gentle walk, and suddenly your body becomes part of the conversation, aligned, responsive, and ready. The Empress card mirrors the energy of this number. She is abundance, not because she grasps for more, but because she embodies enough. She reminds us that prosperity is not a future event. It's a frequency. And that frequency is nurtured when we treat ourselves and the world around us with softness, with beauty, and with deep-rooted trust. To live in the energy of the Empress is to know that your worth is not contingent on your performance. It is inherent, fertile, waiting. And when you return to that truth, prosperity no longer feels like something to attain. It feels like something you've remembered how to let in. As you move through this final energy, consider that the story of money in your life is not fixed. It is fluid. And when you shift your inner stance not by force, but by honesty, you give your future permission to unfold differently. Not because the world changed, but because you did. 27 asks, can you trust that you are safe enough to receive? Can you open without apology? The answer doesn't come all at once. It comes in 9 truths each morning, 1 glass of warm water, 1 conscious step at a time. That's how new wealth begins, not outside, but deep within. Sometimes, all it takes is a quiet pause, a single breath, a moment of stillness to hear the part of you that's been waiting patiently to be chosen again. Leo, after all the numbers, all the layers we've just walked through together, I want you to know this: prosperity was never something far from you. It has always been near, circling, soft, waiting for your permission. The 6 sacred numbers we've explored were never about predicting your luck. They were invitations, pathways through which your clarity, strength, and alignment could rise back to the surface. They didn't come to rescue you. They came to remind you that you already are the source. You see, the universe doesn't randomly grant wealth, healing, or success to a chosen few. It responds to those who show up, slowly but surely, with presence, with willingness, with honesty. And maybe that's what today was really about: not unlocking something new, but unlearning the blocks that kept you from trusting what you already knew deep inside. You don't need to make huge leaps today. You don't need to do everything perfectly. What if one small choice, a comment, a reflection, a moment of stillness tomorrow morning could begin to shift everything? So let me ask you this: which number stayed with you the longest? Which one made your breath catch, even just a little? Which message, however subtle, felt like it was meant only for you? I'd love for you to write that number in the comments below, not for me, but for yourself. To name it is to claim it. And maybe your comment will also become the confirmation someone else has been waiting for. That's how resonance works. It travels. It returns. It finds us when we're ready. This is your moment to begin gently to wake up tomorrow and choose to treat your breath, your body, your boundaries, and your vision with reverence. You don't have to fix it all. You just have to stop abandoning the part of you that's been quietly asking to lead. And from that place, even one glass of water, one journal entry, one boundary honored, or one sunrise noticed becomes a sacred act of alignment. If something in this message moved you, even in the smallest way, I invite you to share it, to like the video, and to subscribe to Eternal Mindfulness. These small gestures help this space grow, help these messages reach others, and help us all stay connected in a world that often moves too fast to feel. Your energy matters here. Your healing matters here. And your presence ripples out more than you know. So as you step into the next hours of your day, I hope you'll carry this truth with you: you are not late, and you are not behind. You are exactly where you need to be to hear this, to begin, and to receive what's already circling back to you. And if there's still a quiet part of you asking, is it really possible for me? I hope today's message answered that, not with a shout, but with a steady yes. May your next decision be a soft one, but a true one. May it come not from fear, but from remembering who you are. And may your light, yes, your specific, brilliant Leo light, continue to shine in ways that awaken others and heal you as it does. I'll see you soon. And until then, keep choosing what aligns. Keep listening inward. And keep honoring the miracle of showing up for yourself. You deserve nothing less.